The dangers of psychiatric drugs. Psychiatric drugs are more dangerous than you ever imagined. It is harder to go off them than it is to go on them. They misdiagnosed me with schizophrenia and bipolar. The way they did that was I had a shaver. I was having flashbacks. I had a thought that my shaver was a bomb. So I told my dad, I said, this is a bomb. So my dad sent me to the doctor. The doctor sent me to a psychiatrist. Then the psychiatrist observed me and asked me these questions. He said, have you been involved in the occult? I said, yes. They said, are you a born again Christian? I said, yes. Then they said, do you hear messages from heaven or from God? I said, yes. And they tagged me with schizophrenia because I said I heard God. Other Christians hear God's voice. They're not schizophrenic. The Bible plainly says, my sheep hear my voice. And in the Old Testament, they walked and talked with God. They heard God's word. They heard God talking to them. So how much more in the New Testament, which is established on better promises, God speaks to his children, his sheep. So they tagged me with illness, and mental illness is a myth. There's no scientific proof that you can use to prove that someone has mental illness. You can test for diabetes, you can test for cancer, you can test for other physical disease, but mental illness, there's no physical scientific proof or test. What they do when they diagnose you with mental illness, they study you. That's all they do is study you. And they have all these degrees, and because they have a title, they're doctors, so they have been educated and study the mind. So they label you and say you're schizophrenia and stick you all kinds of pills, and you believe them because they say they're doctors. Now, psychiatric drugs are more dangerous than you ever imagined. It is harder to go off those drugs than it is to go on them. And I had congestive heart failure one time because of being on clozapine too long. Also, I was on this drug called Invega, and my heart specialist said I have to get off that drug because it could cause heart problems, clog up your heart, something like that. So mental illness is a myth, and psychiatric drugs are causing all kinds of problems. They are not curing a biochemical imbalance, they are creating them. Dr. Caroline Leaf is a brain scientist in the States, and she studies the mind. She's a born-again Christian, and she says that mental illness is a myth. You can go on her type on any browser on a computer and type in the mental illness myth by Dr. Caroline Leaf, and you get a blog about mental illness myth. Also, Dr. Peter Brigham is a psychiatrist in the States. He treats all his patients with no medications. What he does, instead of giving them a pill, he'll spend time with them, he will counsel them, surround them with people who will love them and encourage them and help them, and spend time with them and understand them and listen to them, and he has a big success. Dr. Peter Brigham has all kinds of lawsuits against drug companies, psychiatrists, and doctors, and he won pretty well every one of them. And I was on clozapine too long, I had congestive heart failure. Psychiatric drugs are more dangerous, so dangerous. In fact, here's what happened. I went to see a psychiatrist, my doctor. I'm not going to use no names. I asked him to take me off the pills. He said, it's against my morals, I'm not going to do it. So I complained to the doctors, surgeons, and doctors, college, and surgeon, and they got a hold of my doctor. My doctor got a hold of me, says, come into the office, we're going to adjust your meds. So I went in there, and he says, since you complained, I'm going to take you off all your psychiatric drugs. You're the boss, you're in charge, I'm just going to guide you. So he took me off all the antipsychotic drugs, and I was off them safely. Then he started taking me off the the Epiville. And then halfway through my process of going off them, I went cold turkey, which I shouldn't have did, because I went cold turkey and it's hard to go off those drugs. And so I went cold turkey and ended up back in the hospital, and they put me on all the drugs again. And I was misdiagnosed with it. So I ended up. So now if I ever go off the drugs again, I'll get some people to give me the pills instead of me trying to take them myself. So I'll never have it again. And I'll never go off the drugs again because my wife, I don't want to hurt her. And then for her sake, I'll stay on the drugs. And even on the drugs are not curing a biochemical imbalance. As Dr. Peter Bricken says, they're creating one. They're not curing one. And medicine will never cure you. It'll just help you receive symptoms. But the drugs are not helping you. They're making you worse. When I was in institution, the more drugs they had me on, the worse I got. And the worse I got, I started hearing voices. I used to think I was in heaven. Then I think I'm in hell. Then I hear all kinds of voices. And it was because the pills were causing a biochemical imbalance. In fact, one time I so messed up because of the biochemical imbalance that was created by the drugs. I climbed on this corpse thinking I was having an out-of-body experience, and I thought I heard a voice say, "Go back to your body. It's not your time to go yet." So I went to the funeral home and I climbed on this corpse. Literally, it's not a vision, not a dream, not a hallucination. I literally climbed on a corpse and laid there. Then I realized I wasn't dead. See, I was a Christian, and I remember in the Bible, this dead man, he was dead, and he was so anointed. When they shot a body on top of his grave, he was raised from the dead. So I thought, if I'm dead, I'm going to have to be raised from the dead. So I was waiting for a voice to come say, "Jim, come forth. Jim, come forth." I didn't hear anything. So I realized I wasn't dead. So I climbed off that corpse, and then I went home and prayed, and I got set free from that psychiatric attack. Thanks for listening, and remember, Jesus is Lord.